I'm the creator of Women, Wealth, and Real Estate, plus a few other LLCs as well. I'm 12-year full-time real estate entrepreneur going into my 13th year next year, 2020. Shout out to me and to the creator, right? Because that was it has been interesting, but the past, couple years or so, the last 18 months have just been kind of like what I've been working for a very long time. So I'm happy about that. So I do have a slide presentation. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen real quick to get this party started. Hopefully this technology holds up, and I think that we are good. Are we good? I think we're good.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Let me see if I could do a slideshow. Uh, I don't know. Oh, okay. I recently got a MacBook for the first time. I finally made the switch from Windows, and I tell you, it's like the best thing ever. I'm like, why haven't I? And it wasn't that big of a learning curve. It took me like a couple days to figure it out. So again, today we're talking about deconstructing foreclosure cleanouts. I updated the slides with some recent work orders and some new information, which I think will be more helpful for those of you who are looking for like behind the scenes information or real life information, so to speak. This business I'm a fan of and have been and will be for a while, because you can get to that magical six-figure mark, within the first 12 to 18 months. It doesn't require a degree, no real estate license, no experience, and also not even really a high school diploma. Like this is, it's one of the few things I can think of with this type of income potential, that with so little requirements in terms of what we're used to seeing in terms of, typically the way I was brought up is that if you want to make $100,000, you got to have a master's degree or a PhD. You know what I mean? So this is one of the few industries left, in my opinion, where you can pull that off. All right, so let me see how I can get to the next slide. So I do have a background in corporate accounting. No, nobody cares about that. I don't even care about that actually at this point. I was laid off in '07, but I have been full-time since then. In preservation alone, we're still trying to get to that $2 million revenue mark, but I feel like it's been somewhat elusive over the past, few months, actually all of 2019. So hopefully we'll get there before the end of this year. I'll be sure to, keep everyone updated on that. But all of that was property preservation. It wasn't buying real estate, it wasn't working with buyers and sellers, it wasn't tax lien investing, although I do that as well. This was just straight property preservation. So what I did is set up the company and specialized in, just these two areas to make sure that I feel like if I give it the energy that I know that I'm capable of, then it'll give me the return that I'm looking for. So that's kind of my approach to it. And I share that with you because a lot of people try to do a bunch of different things. I got an email earlier today and it said, oh, if I want to do mobile home investing and property preservation, do I need one LLC or two LLCs or a DBA? And I'm just like, bro, I mean, you need a CPA or an attorney, and that is not me. Like, I cannot answer those questions for you. But a lot of us, want to, try a bunch of different things, and that's okay over time. But I think in the beginning, it's better to just pick one. So typically, I deal with one of three types of people: real estate brokers, because real estate sales can be stressful, and also, as I've said many, many times before, if you don't close, you don't get paid. That's just how it is. Also deal with people who want to get into real estate but don't want to sell anything. And then lastly, just people who are looking to break the cycle of living check to check. And I want to stress this: build a business along the way. So this is actually stepping outside of, maybe your 9 to 5 and starting a business and operating a business. And I'm stressing that because I've had a couple people here and there over the years who were kind of unclear on that, or they were so unused to the concept of being an entrepreneur that it was just too much happening for them to absorb all at one time. So yes, this is entrepreneurship. Like, you're going to own a business, you're going to hire people or do the work yourself. You'll have an LLC or an S corp or whatever you decide to set up. You're going to go ahead and go through all these steps. And really, and I'm sure Gerald can attest to this, it doesn't really take all that long to start a business. We're talking like less than a week. I mean, it's not really that big of a deal to get it done. But it's just a matter of knowing those exact steps to make that happen. So we're talking about the basics of preservation and also pros and cons of the industry, because everybody always is like, well, what happens if, and then there's some insert, some type of major disaster or some experience that I haven't even encountered. So we'll talk about some of that as well. Preservation, I want to be clear, is not remodeling. It's not building from the ground up. Every now and then you will see a request to demo a property. I've not personally done that either myself or through my company, but I've gotten the request, I think about 4 times over the years. And I never actually I made the bid and the bid was either never accepted or they sold the property. But every now and then you will see that. Now, if you don't want to do that, of course you don't have to, but I'm just putting out all the different options that may come your way. But 85 to 90% of what you'll be doing is this list right here. So grass cutting, snow removal, board ups, evictions, lock changes, trash outs, or we call it debris removal, inspections, cash for keys. Cash for keys is basically paying people to leave your property. Jared, have you ever had to do that before?
You know what? Back when I was doing BPOs, when the subprime fallout hit, I believe like one time, but that was over 10 years ago. Gas for keys, I remember that.
Yeah, so I've done it. My company has done quite a few of those in preservation, and also personally, I had a rental where I had to, and it took everything in me because it took everything in me because basically you're paying them for not paying you is
Yeah.
what cash for keys is. These people are not paying rent,
Yeah.
and you don't, and they're eligible for eviction, but you don't want to go through that whole stress, especially if you're in a tenant-friendly city and state, and so you're basically paying them, to leave your property. So there's that. And then also going back to preservation, it's minor plumbing, minor electrical, minor HVAC, and I would also add in minor roofing as well. So you may do a roof tarp. Typically we do 20 by 20 roof tarping, which is anywhere from, it's about $600 to get that done. The roof tarp cost about $24 on the website that we use to get our supplies from. And then I pay the contractors anywhere from, I've seen companies that pay like $150, but I generally would do about $250 or $300 to get the roof tarp done. But you're not, and sometimes you may replace the whole roof. Every now and again, you may see that. But generally it's a roof tarp to correct some type of leak or some type of roof patching. Electrical, same thing. You may be replacing outlets or replacing 1 or 2 circuits. Rarely are you doing an entire panel. It could happen, but it's rare. And the same thing with plumbing. Most of the time you're correcting minor plumbing leaks. You're not repiping the entire property, although I have had to do that as well. So in a nutshell, ladies and gents, this is how it works. You select your territory that you want to cover. I tell people, especially those who I work with, to select the territory or the county closest the county that they live in. That's ideal. If you live in a place where maybe it's saturated with vendors already, or maybe you just you want to cover another area, you certainly do have that option. But about 90% of the people who I work with and that I encounter, they're not quite ready to branch out and do work, that's too far away from where they're located. And the reason for that is generally financial. When I am hiring people that are far away from me as an enticement to get them to do the work on time and show up and do all that good stuff and take all these annoying photos that we have to take, I typically will tell them, okay, I'll pay you when you're done. So if you are trying to work out of state, then you'll need money to be able to do that. And the other reason is just the organization, attention to detail, and being able to recruit people remotely over the phone, because people always say, well, do I have to go meet these contractors? I don't, but I mean, that's a skill set to be able to recruit people and get them to buy into your business and work with you and go actually do work and complete it on time for your company. So I since stepped back and I'm aware of that. So I tell people just stay local. And then, if it's saturated, just wait until it opens up, because it always does. So the servicing company basically hires your company. So again, you need a business to do this, to complete the repairs and maintenance at, various properties in your territory. So servicing company, a lot of people think that you're getting a contract directly from Bank of America. Like people will say, oh, I'm going to go to my local branch and go speak to an REO manager and go have a meeting and they're going to assign me. That's not how none of this works. And the reason for that is because if you think about the largest banks or even the mid-tier, the smaller banks, they're in business to make money from, loaning funds and generating interest. they're really not interested in the repairs and maintenance side of their properties. So they will outsource all of it, 100% of everything, to what's called a servicing company. And that is who you get your contract with. Is everybody clear on that? Because I don't want to have to, well, I'll probably have to revisit it again, but I just want to make sure that that distinction is clear. So you don't work directly for Bank of America or Chase, even though I do have properties that I can see the lien holder. I can see Chase, Bank of America, Key West Mortgage, Fifth, like you can see that, but that's not who you deal with directly. Like I never call anybody at the bank. If I speak to, I think I've spoken to someone at the bank directly one time in 6 years. And that was a disaster. I forget what the disaster was, but it was something major with that particular property. So the servicing company pays your company, and then you will either turn around and keep the money if you're doing the work yourself, obviously, or you're going to turn around and pay your subcontractors. And again, you don't generally work directly for the bank. So that's how this whole entire matrix looks from from a top level view. So you're building a team, or you are going to do the work yourself. Now, quick disclaimer: if you're doing the work yourself, that's great. You do kind of limit your ability to scale your business. And the reason for that is because there's only so many hours in a day, so many days in a week. So you will find yourself, most people I know who do that, they max out at about $80,000 to $90,000 a year in revenue. Because again, you don't do so much with one or two people. All right. So how do you make money? So this is where, and I think Gerald posted one of these photos in the
Yes.
Facebook group the other day. But
Yeah.
so the top left is an older photo. This is a property in Chicago that, the people it was foreclosed. It was assigned to us, and they were a little bit upset that they had to leave. So they turned on the water and all the faucets throughout the property. So every room looked like this bathroom that you see in the top left, with just ice everywhere. The basement, first level, the second level, everything looked exactly like this. And so if you are a regular investor with one or two properties, you come home and you see this, you're like, oh my God, I'm about to be out of a lot of money, or I got to file an insurance claim. And even though insurance is there to protect you, as all of us probably know on this live stream, filing claims actually counts against you. Go figure.
Wow.
I found,
Wow.
and this is a side note, but I remember this is a few years back. My husband at the time had a car that kept breaking down, so he kept calling the tow truck to get the car towed back to the back home or back to a garage. And I remember calling one day to get to update the insurance or make a payment, and they're like, "Oh, you have 12 claims." I was like, "No, we don't. What are you talking about? 12 claims? Towing your car counts as a claim."
What? Are you serious?
So serious. This was Liberty Mutual. If you don't believe me, Google it or call them and find out. But yes, they were like, you have 12 claims. And I was like, holy crap, this insurance business is quite interesting. But anyway, going back to the properties, this is how you make money. So this property on the top left, there was a series of work assignments, or we call them work orders, that were issued. One is to thaw the property. One is to get out all the water in the property. Another one is to get rid of all the debris that was damaged. And another one was the last one was to treat mold at the property, but it was actually sold before we were able to complete that. Because obviously when there's water and then it gets, there's so much moisture and then the weather changes and the sun comes out and the property's still sitting, it typically will lead to some form of mold somewhere in the property. So that was about $6,000 or $7,000 for this property. These other photos are from a property that we're assigned to in Houston, Texas. And that goes back to my point about saturation. Houston is a bit of a saturated market, but in the last probably 7 or 10 days, we've made about $10,000 just from, a couple of properties that we were assigned to, because again, the prior vendor, I don't know what they did. They messed up in some way. They got their orders pulled, so they came to our company. But this property here is a hoarder's property, dog feces everywhere. What else? Mold throughout the entire property. And the dogs were left there, and I guess they went through and just ransacked everything. So that's why the property looks the way that it looks. And there's probably 4 washers, 2 dryers, 2 refrigerators, and and 2 stoves. Like it's a bunch of stuff in this property. And so these are the things that you will eventually encounter. So I posted this also in my Facebook group as well. And another one of my clients, Nativa Hurd, which you may know her from, her company is the Frugal Creditista. She works with Tiffany Aliche and some other people. So her husband actually does preservation, thanks to yours truly. And they relocated to North Carolina. And she said they encountered what did she say? A skunk one time? Cats and skunks. And so she said the neighbors just had skunk traps handy. And so they went and borrowed some skunk traps to catch the skunks and I guess let them back out into the wild. But these are only things you encounter down south. Like up north, we typically don't have to deal with these things, but down south, a whole different breed. So this property here, I'm gonna show you what the approved bid was for this property. And then I'm gonna show you why I did not take it. And then that will lead to the conversation about one of the cons or potential disadvantages of the industry. So the work order was assigned again to me, and they wanted to pay $3,000. I'm gonna tell you, when I first got started, I would have done this work order for this $3,000. Like I promise you, I would have been all over it. Let me know. Make this and because I was hungrier, you know what I mean? And I was thirstier and I was broker. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna go do whatever I need to do. But now that I have more experience, now that I know how to bid properly, now that I know how to utilize the software and do all these different things, I know for an absolute fact that they were underpaying on this work order. And that is one of the things that some people have. And they'll say, oh, they try to underbid you or they undercut you and things like that. And that's true. But I think of it this way. This is America. America has a capitalistic system. And so it's kind of like when you work at your job. I'll use myself as an example. I started in audit and my first year, I was at $50,000 a year and I thought I was rich. I said this so many times. Like, I wish I could just be that excited about $50,000. Is that ever gonna happen, girl? No, never. Maybe 50,000, but like over the course of a year, I'm just like, really? So I thought it was a lot of money at the time, and it came out to about $28, $29 an hour. Somebody don't quote me, but it's somewhere around there. But I was getting billed out on my audit engagements at $150 an hour. So basically 20% of what the corporation was billing me out at. So this is no different, and your job is no different, and whatever you're doing right now is literally no different. It's just here you have more leeway, and you can just say, like for me, I declined to do this work order, as opposed to corporate where you kind of got to take what they give you, right? You don't really have the option to say, well, I decline to work here under these conditions unless you want another job. So the property had about 100 cubic yards of debris. A cubic yard, think of it as the size of a deep freezer or a washing machine, like the average washing machine that you may have in your home. So 100 cubic yards. Typically, we bid out for that company at $50 a cubic yard. So that's 5,000. So that's already lower than or higher than what they were trying to pay. But since it's hazardous debris and there's mold and dog feces and who knows what else, then I increased it to $60 a cubic yard, which comes out to $6,000. So $5,000 or $6,000 is what it should be. And they, for whatever reason, actually I know the reason. This was a VA property, and VA properties they have much lower budgets than Fannie, Freddie, and FHA. So I know what the issue is. So somebody is going to do that for $3,000, I'm sure, but that somebody will not be Platinum Field Services. That much I can assure you. That will not happen. And so that's one of the benefits to working with someone like myself as you're getting started, because if you were one of my clients and you told me, you brought me that work order or you emailed it to me and I saw the pictures, I'd be like, okay, well, that's definitely not enough money. But again, if you need money and you're thirsty, then definitely go make that happen. You're not going to lose at $3,000. You're just not going to make as much money as you're supposed to. Okay. So that's one of the disadvantages that people talk about often. And typically you run into that with companies that are not national companies. For the most part, this company here is a great company, but like I said, the VA properties, they just don't have very high budgets. So I don't know what's going to happen. I think maybe it'll sell before somebody agrees to do the trash out. I don't know, but we'll see. If it comes back my way, I'll be sure to update. Oh, and going back to my what happens when you decline. So if you decline work orders, occasionally, it's not a big deal. Now, if you do it all the time, they will either reduce your coverage area or reduce the amount of work that they send to you. So that is a risk. All right, so to get started, you need a general liability, professional liability, for sure. You have to have those. Workers' compensation insurance is optional depending upon where you live and depending upon the company that you work with. There's a background check for every owner of the company. Knowledge, which comes from myself, or Google and YouTube if that's the route that you choose to go, and ability to execute. While we're talking about Google and YouTube, I want to give you a real life example because this is so perfect, right? I'm in another group. I'm in a lot of real estate groups, of course. And one of the girls was saying, she asked a question. This is one of the groups that's kind of a free for all, where people just post questions and everybody, and they expect answers, and life goes on. So she's been posting a lot of questions, but she said, can you name any national companies for preservation that have consistent work? And so the owner of the group said, Danielle has a great course. I took it, which she did. And I think she has a partner. She said, you should, work with her. And so I commented and I said, I know who she is. We've been in touch for at least the last 2 years. I said, I believe she knows I can help her. But I also think that she thinks that she can do it herself. And I said, but I do know for sure that 2 years of figuring it out has cost you at least $100,000. Mm-hmm. And so for some reason that was considered like going left, or this, it was weird to me, so that's what prompted, I don't know if you saw my Facebook post where I was saying that, I'm working on my tone and communication skills, because for some people that's deemed to be offensive, but I was just like, okay, looking at the numbers, like, I know who she is, we talked many times, it's like, yeah, it's about $100,000, not saying that she was a bad person or anything, but just like these are just facts. Like, I know what would have happened during that 2-year time frame. So then I came back and I said, this gives me an opportunity to work on my tone and my communication skills, and I want her to win, just like I want everybody else to win. I'm not saying anything negative. I'm just, restating that, I could have helped her over the past 2 years. So what you lose by searching Google and YouTube could be very costly. You're basically losing revenue in your research and analyzing phase, when you could have just shortcut that learning curve and already been making money. So just putting that out there. So I think the best way to get started is to do it yourself. If you are handy, which I am not, if you're handy and you can do work locally. I have a guy, his name is Jonathan Bunch, and he works in the DMV area. And he is handy and he's doing work locally. And he actually got flooded the first 90 days. And that was a combination of a shortage of vendors in the area and just the fact that there was a bunch of work also in the DMV area. This was about 2 months ago. So I think the best way is to do it yourself, because you can save up a lot more money in a shorter period of time. Outside of that, it's to outsource from the beginning, which is what I do 100% now. And the reason for that is because supplying everything for the contractors, for one, is costly, and for two, they really don't appreciate it. So my theory, and based on my experience, is that they'll always take better care of their property than they ever will of yours. And I mean, these are just facts. So I don't know, I don't want to be offensive again, but these are just like, this is just human nature. Like, if I pay $500 for this snowblower, I'm going to make sure that I don't use the snowblower when it's 2 inches of snow. I'm going to use a shovel because I might damage the blades. But if I didn't pay for it, I might just say, you know what, let me give it a try. Let me see what happens with this snowblower. And then it cracks. And then that's another expense. Or they crash the truck, which has happened. Or they take stuff from the properties and go to the pawn shop, which has happened. Or they go and run errands with the truck, which has happened. Like, all these things have happened over the years, which is why I say, okay, you just want people who have their own stuff at this point. So have your contractors have their own materials, supplies, method of transportation. And if you do it this way, as opposed to the other way, your startup costs could be covered between, I say $2,000 is recommended, $3,000 is better. Obviously, you don't have to have it all at one time, even though that would be nice because you can get started faster. But the $2,000 will then cover, so your insurance is typically $400 to $600 deposit. Your business formation, that depends on the route that you go. So sole proprietorships, um, that's actually accepted at every single national company with the exception of one. So it is a suitable business structure. Those are generally less than $100. And depending upon where you live, between 1 day and 31 days to get that set up. If you go the route of an LLC, I think the cheapest that I know of might be 99, the most expensive, 500. And then from there, the cost can vary significantly. And then initial payroll, so I want to spend some time there because people always ask about payroll. All the companies I recommend, with the exception of one, will pay you out every 2 weeks. And so generally that lines up with when you're paying your contractors, because I pay every 2 weeks. That's my preference. Now, as you're just getting started, sometimes your first deposit might be a little bit slower, so there may be a few days you have to cover. But again, you're not flooded with work, so it's not like you got to come up with $5,000 like to pay people. Like, you're not going to be making that much money to start with. You might be at $1,000 or $2,000, and then from there you got to figure out how much your contractor gets paid. So you're not covering a whole bunch of money. So you explain to your team as you bring them on, just like every other job that they've ever had at Target, or even my jobs. I worked at Burger King, McDonald's, Shoney's, IHOP, Solo Cup Factory, FedEx for like 24 hours. Of course, corporate America. So all the jobs I've ever had, when I start working, I might start work on a payday. Of course, I'm not getting paid. So I get paid, the next time that it runs. And then I only get paid for a few days. I mean, everybody kind of knows that cycle, I feel like, at least in America. So that's how I explain it to the contractors. But $2,000 is recommended. $3,000 is better. I mean, more money is always better for this business than anything else. So my method, go the extra mile, do all the stuff that they want you to do, unless they're just trying to screw you over, like with that mold, that debris removal that I showed you a few slides ago. Only work with national reputable companies, accept all the work that you can. Track your expenses and revenue daily is my recommendation. And then submit excellent bids. So the bidding, there's software that you can use to help with bids if you know nothing about it. And people always get hung up on the bidding part. So bidding is only about 10% of what you'll be doing. Everything else, y'all, is just flat fee work order. It's like, go do this lock change, $60, cut this grass, $85. That's literally it. And then the bidding comes into play when the grass hasn't been cut. Let's say it's the first grass cut of the year and it's been neglected and the grass is 2 feet tall. Well, then you bid for that. And again, if you can't agree on the bid, if you don't like their pricing or whatever the case may be, then you can just decline it. Like, it's not the end of the world. Nobody's gonna take you to a corner office and write you up for for not, agreeing to cut this grass at this price. You just move on to the next assignment. This last thing about two-tier roster of contractors. So my first roster are the people who have their own stuff and they're self-reliant and I don't have to micromanage them. Second roster are those who are a little bit more challenged. You might have to pick them up. You may have picked them up in front of Home Depot, which I've done about a handful of times over the years, just because there was a big clean out. And if you need like day laborers, there's every city I've ever been in, and Gerald, you can probably attest to this, every city I've ever been in, you go to Home Depot, you can find people who are willing to work.
Yep.
Right? They're ready and they will go right then and there. You just got to pay them the same day. That's all. And then every now and again, one of those people will turn out to be a magnificent contractor. You're like, holy crap, you can stay on board. But that's only happened like 2 times in my life. So yeah, there's that. So quick recap for those of you who got on late, how many people jumped on late, Gerald? A lot of people or just a few?
Probably about 10, maybe 10, 12 people.
All right, so this is for y'all. So we talked about why preservation is an ideal niche within the industry. And the reason for that is because the startup costs are low. Again, I recommend $3,000 is better. No college degree required. You don't have to have a real estate license. You don't have to have a general contractor's license. You don't have to what else am I missing? You don't have to actually even have any experience or even a college degree. So there's that. The basic requirements to get started: set up your business in whatever structure best aligns with your budget. So I did do a sole proprietorship for about from 2013 through January 2015. And from there, I switched to an S Corp, and that was only because the CPA told me to do so. Like, I literally remember nothing about accounting. Like, my accounting is so bad. Like, I even was struggling with QuickBooks. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, what has happened? I don't even, and I'm struggling to figure out, how to even set up my own QuickBooks account. So I'm telling the CPA, like, okay, can you set it up for me? And I know she's probably thinking to herself, like, what do you need help with? Like, I'm so confused. But anyway, so the basic requirements: set up your own company. There is a background check. It's a criminal background check for all the owners of the company. So if it's you, is my internet connection unstable? Can you see me?
Yeah, it goes in and out a little bit. So,
Oh,
but you're fine. You're fine right
I wonder why it does that. It doesn't do that for my children. It only does that for me.
now.
They be playing Roblox and doing all type of stuff. And whenever I'm doing this, it's a little bit shaky. But so you buy you set up your company. Oh, the background check. It's on all the owners. So if it's a husband and wife team, and the husband has a felony, or the wife, I've seen quite a few wives that actually have felonies too. Like, I don't ask any questions. I just mind my business. But I'm just like, okay. So if that's the case, then it can only be in whoever's name does not have the felony. Outside of that, I don't know about misdemeanors and this, that, and the third. So you'd have to, contact the background check company for confirmation on that, because I don't know the specifics on that. And then from there, general liability insurance, professional